Hey, you guys, we're back again with another episode of the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness Podcast, and I have a repeat guest, Wynn Charles, best-selling author, former educator, and today she's going to talk about her move from Colorado to Arizona, and how the transition's been for her since she moved. So, welcome back, Wynn. I'm glad to have you back on the show.
I'm glad to be back, David. And for those of you who don't know what my disability is also cerebral palsy. And I'm sure that David has shared what cerebral palsy is. If not, I can give the quick version. And the quick version is cerebral palsy is a lack of oxygen injury at birth. And yeah, cerebral palsy isn't genetic, it's a lack of oxygen injury at birth. And so today I'm here to talk about my transition from Colorado to Arizona and why I decided to make a wild goose chase move in the middle of a pandemic, and why, because for those of you that remember, I did interview on the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness podcast with David as I was sitting in a hotel room waiting for my butler to get fixed. So yeah, so that hotel room has something to do with this wild and crazy transition that, yeah, it just coincided in that hotel room, believe it or not. And my aunt found this link and she handed it to me and she said, "Here, try this." Well, the next thing I knew, I'm making a phone call saying, "Excuse me, what is this assisted living, but living independently house in Arizona?" And I am not kidding. I still have the main phone number as CP House in Arizona, and I'm like, okay. And so they explained it to me. The next thing I know, my stepmom, myself, my team, my lawyer and my fiduciary, my financial advisor, and my step aunt, who happens to be my stepmom's biological sister, are all sitting in a hotel room having a meeting about me moving to Arizona. They're like, "Do you want to move? First of all, do you want to move to Arizona?" And I said, "Yes, please," because the cost of care in Aspen, Colorado was going up, not down. And so I couldn't afford I couldn't afford to keep my dad's house. And I only sold the house in December. And so, yeah, when the boiler broke in January, I said, "Oh, get me out of here. Get me out of here to the heat of Arizona, to the heat of Florida." I didn't care which, but I didn't want to deal with cold. I didn't want to deal with the lack of services towards people with disability. I didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to live my life in a safe and loving environment.
Oh yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. You always want to find somewhere where you can channel your inner peace, be
Yeah.
able to do what you need to do, and be able to be yourself without any distractions. And I wanted to ask you, like, what prompted you to choose Arizona or Florida, and what was the toughest, I guess, obstacle you faced during the move?
Well, it was um, what prompted me, because what I was going to do, I called every single, except phone or go, obviously. I called every single old age home, every single assisted living home. And then because of COVID and because of my situation, they said, I remember contacting one home in Texas, and they go, you're too savant for us. So yeah, I'm like, okay, thank you very much. You don't have the level of, because how my cerebral palsy works. Now, granted, the same disability could affect people differently, men, women, children. The same disability
Exactly.
could affect people differently. So how my cerebral palsy works, because I know you guys are like, what? All cerebral palsy is different. You guys are like, what? Where are we going with this one? How my cerebral palsy affects me is it affects both sides of my body, and I can't physically get myself dressed. Other than that, I need full assistance dressing, full assistance with cooking. Other than that, I'm perfectly fine during the day. So when I called the home in Texas, I asked them, I said, well, what do you have to offer me? And this is before the boiler broke, this is before the Lunar Zero. And they go, well, what's your situation? And I said, I am mentally there, but physically I need help. I need help. And they go, well, we have a program for people that are not mentally there, or we have a program that people need minimal help. And I'm like, okay, so you don't have a program in the middle. And so and when I called a couple other places, they're like, no, we're not accepting new residents because of COVID. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. So my ultimate goal was to buy a house, have my own care, buy a house in a cheaper cost of living state, have my own care, and just carry on. Now, how I got to Lunazil is because what Lunazil is and what it isn't is it's not individually owned. Um, it's not a group home. Let's get this straight. I'm not in a group home. I am in an individually owned by me condo. And this house that I'm in, this whole complete complex is monitored 24/7. But just like everyone else, we can come and go as we please. And there's no gatekeepers per se. There is a sign and thing, but there's no gatekeepers to ask you where you're going, where you're going, where you're going. And so just like every other apartment complex on the planet, we can go and come as we please. Now, the reason why Lunazil was set up like this is because the developer had a child, has a child with a disability, an eating disorder, Prader-Willi syndrome, which means they don't have the concept of being full, which means they'll eat everything in sight if you let them. So to be quite frank with you, the developer goes, great, where's my daughter gonna go when I die? Because she still needs assistance, but when I die and her mom dies, where is she gonna go? And so he took all his capital from his law firm and with a couple other investors, he decided to buy a piece of land in Phoenix, Arizona. Now you're like, well, why is it stuck in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona? And because of a medical, that's why we're stuck in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona. And when I say stuck, we are stuck. I mean, the heat, you guys, for those of you who have dealt with dry heat, you know what I'm talking about. The heat is the heat, it's the heat. So we're stuck in the middle of the desert, but at the same time, the medical facilities for cerebral palsy are phenomenal. I have the Mayo Clinic 15 minutes away from my house.
That's wonderful. That's close by.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's why Lunazol is stuck in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona. My family tried to send me to a group home. That didn't work out so well. I put my foot down, my team put my foot down and put their foot down, and it turns out that I didn't want to go. And so they were trying to send me to a group home since my dad died. And then for those of you who don't know, who didn't listen to the original episode, I got physically and emotionally abused by a family member. And turns out that my family turned on me. Well, they didn't turn on me, they're just not the nicest crew on the planet. And turns out that they didn't respect anyone, including my aides, including my stepmom, including everyone around me. And then they emotionally, physically abused me. One family member did. And then they fall off the planet for a couple months and say, I get a phone call before selling my dad's house. And they go, well, when? This is why you haven't heard from us in a couple months, because we've been doing research on a group home. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. You guys want to send me to a group home? Oh boy. When all I need is help bathing and dressing, and I already have a college degree, and I'm working on a second one, and all I need is help cooking. And so I met with this group home. It's the Stewart Holman School, and what they focus on at the Stewart Holman School is that Lunazol does not, is that they focus on primarily Down syndrome and autism and Williams syndrome, which Lunazol lets anyone in with any disability. There's no age per se. We have a resident who is 18, still going to school, and then still going to high school. And then we have a resident who is in his 60s.
That's I mean, that's definitely a disparity in age. And I wanted to ask you, like, as far as like, I know you mentioned condos and group homes. Do you think that I guess the medical system there in Arizona is better than the one in Colorado? And are you getting everything you need now than you were before?
I Okay, can I get on my soapbox here? Yes, 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 yes. I'm getting I am getting more medical treatments geared towards well, not necessarily geared anymore, but I'm getting more and more medical treatments for cerebral palsy in Arizona than I than I ever did in Colorado because the closest good medical care to me was 4 hours away. And as compared to one of the top hospitals in the country, 15 minutes away, yes, that's a huge difference right there. And so, yes, I'm getting more and more medical diagnoses, more and more medical related help. And yeah.
Yeah, and speaking about group homes, you have to realize that right now it's not the most it's not the safest place to put someone currently, because right now with COVID running rampant,
I was going to say that. I was going to say that. Yes,
I'm telling
group
you.
homes are not the right now of COVID. Group homes are not the safest place. And when I was talking to the group home where I was potentially going to, my aunt, and I can't believe she did this, but she did it anyway. My aunt decided to ask and I distinctly remember the director of activities, well, what about wind going in town? What about wind going into Kentucky? What about wind going into physical therapy? The director of, I put my hand up on Zoom and I said to my aunt, I literally looked at her with a group director on the phone, and I said to my aunt, can I jump in here for a couple minutes? And she goes, sure, Win, this is your time to shine. And I said, I don't think they're necessarily going into the town around them. And the director goes, I am afraid that I would like to back Win up because we're not. We're trying to keep everyone safe. And even though
Exactly.
the homes are great for some, they're not so hot for others. So I think this new model of independent living with assistance is the next best thing.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating the fact that you have options like that now, and hopefully they'll be more available, not just in Colorado, but everywhere. Every state should have something like that.
Well, Colorado has nothing like this. I had to move to get this. Colorado has nothing like this. Slash, the population is being driven out of Colorado because of cost of living.
I'm pretty sure it's high up there currently.
Yeah, it's we're talking second home. We're talking second homeowners that yeah, because I am every time I go out in Arizona, I'm shocked at the prices. I'm like, okay, this is cheap compared to where I come from, the land of expensive. And my family was explaining to me when it's not cheap, it's just middle America, USA, and you were coming from the land of expensive.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm pretty sure that with change comes a different, you're talking about a whole different environment. You're asking yourself, and this new environment, what am I doing now? What's next for me? And because you're leaving a lot, I'm pretty sure you had to leave some stuff behind in Colorado that you had
Oh,
to
oh
move
yeah,
up here. So
I had to leave. Well, first of all, my parents were both passed away. So I had no biological family to support me whatsoever. And so I had to make a push comes to shove move. And my best move was to move out of where I was to get a better, not only a better cost of living, but a better environment for cerebral palsy to be in, and not and better medical care.
Yeah, I mean, for people, for individuals like us, it's so important to have the medical resources available to us whenever we
Exactly.
need them.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, CP as a whole, it's not going to take us down. I mean, it could, but CP as a whole, it's not going to take us down. It's the underlying conditions, and I hate to be blunt, it's the underlying conditions that, like pneumonia, getting exposed to COVID, that will take us down because we have weakened lungs. And so the more medical care, the more high quality medical care we can get, the better.
Exactly, you hit the nail right on the coffin on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science, or maybe it does. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. I mean, hello, the more and the less we're in these group home environments and getting exposed to God knows what, everything under the sun, and then they're contracting COVID left, right, and center, and then they isolate the isolate the residents in the rooms, and that causes all different kind of depression. And so group homes are great for some, but for others, they are not.
Definitely, everybody has differences, and to kind of ask you, now that you're out of Colorado, what's next for this new version of Win in Arizona? You know,
Well,
what's next for you?
the new version of Win 2.0, basically. The new version of when I am slowly integrating myself into the job market, I'm slowly but surely finishing a degree in journalism. And so that's what's next for me, and taking the time to really reflect on myself and get my health under control so I could be the best version of me. I mean, I got diagnosed with sleep apnea and asthma right before I left Aspen, and then I got and then I'm trying to really use these medical resources to get myself diagnosed in the proper way. As I said, CP as a whole won't take us down. It's the underlying conditions that will take us down.
Exactly, and I know you were working on trying to get into journalism, and you've had bumps on the road, but you've never let it stop you from getting to where you need to go. So that's always
And
commendable.
I will I will continue to get my finish my journalism degree, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure you're definitely capable of it. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, well, bumps in the road it shall be, but we all have bumps on the road in life, and we all have interesting stuff, and we all do what we can to make ourselves better. And people keep teasing me all the time because they're like, when you have cerebral palsy, you can ask for help, no questions asked. But asking for help and receiving the help, let me tell you guys something. It's one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life to say, help me. Because with the move, and no one tells you, by the way, you're moving 2 states with help, obviously, but no one tells you how exhausting a move is. They say, oh, Win, you're doing perfectly fine. I'm like, hello? And it's interesting who comes out of the woodwork during the midst of a move. And I'm like, now my family all of a sudden wants to be supportive. I'm like, great. Now you guys want to be supportive. Thank you very much. Where were you when I really needed you? No, you weren't there. You weren't there. You scattered, and then once my dad dies, you fall out of the woodwork. I'm like, great.
Yeah, funny that you mentioned that. Like it's like when certain people come out of the woodwork after they realize that you're starting to
Yeah,
become a little bit well known and people
yeah,
are getting to know
definitely.
you and they're seeing that you have this successful like podcast or anything that you do. And
Exactly. Yeah.
they weren't there since day one. They weren't there when you
Oh,
were trying to struggle from the ground up, and they want to come in now. So it's like, why come in now? You're kind of late.
fine. Yeah, you're late to the game. You're late to the game. And so I find it funny that my family who is late to the game, they're like, oh, we all of a sudden want to see you. And so
What would you say to, I guess, to those out there that are contemplating to do a shift in their environment and just to kind of get away from everything?
shift in their environment. Well, if you can do it, if you need, well, once you turn 18, that's a whole different story. But if
Yeah.
you still want to, and I'm not kidding, if you still want to make a shift in your environment, and I'm not kidding because at one point I thought about this, I seriously did, and my father actually mentioned it too. If you can, you need to start talking to the people around you now and getting their paperwork organized, because I hate to be blunt, but we're all going to die, and we're
Yeah.
all going to, and I got left holding the bag of, okay, my dad died, now what? And so I got left a scattered mess. So my big PSA, and this was a week after my dad died, too, and it still holds true. 11 years for my mom, and then 2 years for my dad. Get your acts together. If you need to call a family meeting, and if you need to be blunt as the individual and as the child with a disability, you need to get your act together to empower yourself to make those moves.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do. And sometimes you as the adult are the main advocate. And when you advocate for yourself, um, and others see that you're doing what you want to do and you're making your own decisions, because if you may be physically disabled, we both are, but at the end of the day, once you're an adult and you're capable of making decisions, you do what's best for you.
Yeah, no. And so I would say, yeah, here's my call to action to you guys. Whenever this episode comes out, have the family meetings if you have the wherewithal to speak and bring in a witness and just say, here's what I want to do. Can you guys help me? Or have you thought about what's going to happen when you guys die? Because parents are going to die. I unfortunately lost my parents young, but my dad, bless his heart, never had the conversations with me, never had the conversations with my stepmom, never had conversations with anyone, I don't think, about what I was supposed to do. So when my dad died, we got left holding Herman, and we got left holding Meg, and we're like, okay, great, because he never explained to any of us what to do. I'm like, okay, great. Then I had to make a push comes to shove, move to Arizona, and it's the best decision I ever made in my life.
That is so wonderful. Just just the fact that we've had two episodes together. This is our second one, and getting to know you not just as an author and as an educator, but as an individual. You are possibly one of the strongest people I've ever met, and I mean that wholeheartedly, and I definitely respect you for it.
Well, I appreciate them. I appreciate it. No, and my fan base will, and they care about us as the host more than they care about the people that they that the host is interviewing. I mean, unless you're interviewing Jackie Robinson, who's famous, or unless you're interviewing a famous baseball player, basketball player, tennis player, I have discovered that they care about the host more than they care about the interviews per se.
Yeah, I mean it's weird how that works, right?
It is weird how that works. It's definitely weird. I'm like, okay, what did I do? I just interviewed a person, but people keep coming back and back and back to listen to every single interview, and and one of the things that I will tell you guys, those of you that want to start a podcast, look, I can help you set one up. It's easy to do, but you got to be consistent with it.
Exactly. Like I started mine 3 years ago with a cell phone, no experience in audio quality, video editing, uh being aware of my surroundings. I had no idea how to do one. I just randomly started one, and I worked my way to where I'm at today, just like you started yours, I think more than 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, it would be 11 years, and I've been on mic 11 years, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And people are like, okay, what wild goose chases when going on now? And when I told them I was moving out of Colorado to Arizona, they're like, what? And then I explained why, and then yeah, and then they said, Yahoo, let's support Win, even though she moved locations, because they knew as long as you tell your fan base what's going on, and they will support you.
Exactly. I mean, they listen to you and they're there for a reason every week,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, they're following them every week.
And if you are looking to start a podcast, um, and you really need somebody to listen to, and I hope to aspire to have the longevity that you have in this profession. 11 years, it's not easy, but I hope to get there. I hope to get there one
No,
day. I
it's
hope to get there one day.
not
You know?
easy. No, it's not easy. What I did, because of and my podcast is still going, because of a move and because of the world shutting down, I went full throttle into creating podcast content. So now I have content all the way up until January 1st of 2022. New episodes, mind you.
That's me right now with my new schedule because of my brand new position. I just started with the city of Orlando. I'm a youth advocate now, so
I know.
my schedule is a bit flexible now. I can do podcast interviews. I do my workouts in the morning, and right now I'm doing the two things that I love the most is just podcasting, getting to know people, their motivating stories, and getting to help children and guiding them in the right direction so that they can
Yeah, well,
succeed.
yeah. And I would like to give you a huge shout out publicly now. I saw that on Facebook, and when you do a congratulations on Facebook, it it just falls into the heap. So for those of you that don't follow David on Facebook, you probably should because he's doing amazing things. I mean, well, just because we're disabled does not mean we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs. We're impacting the world one small step at a time, or one small wheelchair move at a time, with it, however you guys want to put it. And I think the work you're doing, David, and I'm not just saying that to be nice on this podcast, I think what you're doing is tremendously well deserved, and I hope that these kids are impacted by you.
Thank you. That really means a lot, and I hope these kids eventually feel the same way when they grow older and they eventually see me, down the line.
Yeah, it may take a couple weeks of, okay, you gotta sit down and do this, and then they'll understand how special to have a friend with cerebral palsy is.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I definitely appreciate you being on the show, sharing your journey from just to go way back from when I first met you, uh, talking about your educational journey, your journey through journalism, your cerebral palsy, your time in Colorado, and now you moved to Arizona. It's been a crazy journey, one that has had twists and turns.
It's been a crazy, crazy journey, and I plan to continue it. And for those of you who want to follow my journey, you're welcome to follow me on Facebook, and you're welcome to follow my podcast, A Winning Cup, and you're welcome to go to a winningcup.webelieve.com to see all my work, and I'm sure that David will stick it in the show notes.
Yes.
And I hope that we have inspired you guys to put one step in front of the other and make it make this world a better place.
And who knows, there might be a part three in the future.
Yep, there might be a part 3, you guys. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know it. It could happen. Who knows?
Happen.
So thank you for being on, Win. And this episode it'll be found on YouTube, Spotify. I just now recently got on Red Circle. Anywhere you listen, it'll be on there. And one of the things that I always try to tell my audience is I don't put on the podcast to just, put on senseless stuff that you see everywhere. I put on the podcast to have people on that have meaning, that show courage, that show bravery, that show inspiration, and that they can see that they may be struggling with with a physical disability, intellectual disability, or just in general, that you can come out of that spiral and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and that you will be successful. So with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and end the show on this note. Remember that Gwen and I are here, so I'm going to modify my saying, if we can do it, so can you.
Yep. If we can do it, so can you. And I appreciate you guys, and please, 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 if you guys are on the Apple side, please, please, please leave a review for David's work. All that does is help Apple, iTunes get more earballs. Yes, I said earballs, not eyeballs on it. And although YouTube is eyeballs, and so if you could please leave a comment on David's YouTube channel, that would help too, because eyeballs and earballs equal the same thing. And so just leave a review. For those of you on the Android side, just share this episode out of David's and follow along both our adventures, and the best is yet to come.
Yes, you are right. The best is yet to come. And thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And I hope to hear from you all soon.
Thank you.
All right.